evening. I'll call the meeting to order at this time, and I will ask Councilman Barber if he will lead us in the invocation. If you will, please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Barber.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity we have that we can come among your people of this town to do your business for these people. We pray, Lord, that every decision we make are decisions that are going to be beneficial to those within the town. We pray, Lord, that we make them in a way that will benefit all of our citizens, regardless of who they are. And we thank you, Lord, for the opportunities and the privileges you give us to do it. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, you have the agenda in front of you. There are a couple of known changes that I'm aware about. Those are in front of you. It's item number 11 to add to the consent agenda, special event consideration and request for approval to allow Francisco Valet to hold a fundraiser at Twister's Dance Club in the parking lot on Saturday, February the 20th, 2021 from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And the next item is item number 12, to add to the consent agenda, consideration and request for approval to accept NCDOT pedestrian planning grant. And then also just one item that I wanted to point out has to do with just the consent item dealing with the addition of for the fire department grant to install the exhaust removal system on Station 2. In your binders, that first paragraph that was related to that item, there was some inaccuracies in that. So you have at your place just the corrected first paragraph. That's the only thing that changed. It's just the wording. All the numbers and so forth, everything else remained the same. Is that correct, Mr. Manager and Chief?
Yeah, it's the first paragraph on page 32.
Okay, page 32. So I just wanted to point that out to you, because that is a change in just the wording, but will remain on the consent agenda unless there's opposition and like to be moved to business item. So those are the only two known changes that I have at this time. Are there any additions or corrections or changes to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move consent agenda item number 2 to business item number 1.
Second. Okay, can motion and a second to move consent item number 2 to business item number 1. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mayor, for sake of time, we could move business item 2 to consent, but unless we need to further discuss that. Because I think that's already been budgeted.
Bid award to Deacon Jones?
Yeah, that's for those.
Yep. I have no problem with that, gentlemen. Do you? Anybody have any problems with moving that to consent agenda?
Mayor, we move that to consent.
I second it.
Motion and a second to move bid award to Deacon Jones in the amount of $66,836 for the purchase of 2 Dodge Durango vehicles for the police department's traffic team. Move that to the consent. Okay.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Now we'll get started on our first presentation. I have a proclamation honoring Terry Sasser's 20-plus years of service to the town of Smithfield. So you'll come forward, please, sir, and anybody else you'd like to bring with you. Chiefs, you'll come forward. Sir, Chief. So who do you have with you here? Is this your team? Used to be. Well, I guess, yeah, you officially.
Assistant Chief Jeremy Daughtry, Captain Bennett Howe, Lieutenant Larry Hobbs, Engineer Steve Bisley.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out this evening and supporting.
Yeah, my wife's here too.
The biggest supporter, the biggest supporter. You need to come on up here. All right. All right, Captain. Again, congratulations on your service and your dedication to the town of Smithfield. And if you'll bear with me, I'll speak into the microphone, and then we can do a picture if you would like. So I'll just read the proclamation to you, sir. So, proclamation in honor of Fire Captain Terry Steve Sasser's 23 years of dedicated service to the town of Smithfield. Whereas Terry Steve Sasser has been a dedicated employee of the town of Smithfield for 23 years. And whereas Terry Steve Sasser retired on January 31st, 2021 with 21 years of full-time service and 2 years of volunteer service with the Smithfield Fire Department. And whereas prior to his years with the town of Smithfield, Terry Steve Sasser also served in the North Carolina Department of Corrections. And whereas during his career, Terry Steve Sasser has risen through the ranks, beginning as a fire engineer and ultimately promoted to the rank of fire captain. We just pause. That's outstanding. Congratulations on that. And to you, it just kind of shows that what type of system we have here in Smithfield and what can happen to dedicated employees that put the time in and the service in. So, sorry to stop you there, but that's outstanding, right? And thanks again for your dedicated service. Whereas Terry Steve Sasser's years of service have been marked with professionalism, dedication, and service to the citizens of Smithfield. And whereas Terry Steve Sasser has earned and deserves this public recognition for his many years of service and commitment to the town of Smithfield. Now, therefore, I, Andy Moore, Mayor of the town of Smithfield, along with the members of the town council, express our sincere appreciation to Captain Sasser for his distinguished service to the town of Smithfield and urge our citizens to join with us as we extend our sincere appreciation for his work and wish him well in future endeavors. Thank you very much, sir. And to you, and I will also give you this, and you want to maybe go right over here. Got a spot there in the children. And you ready? Thank you.
Stand there.
So we do have a very good volunteer program here, if you want to come back.
Mayor, I'd like to make a few comments about Steve.
Yes, sir.
If it's appropriate.
Yes, sir.
I told him that he needed to give us a speech, but Steve, on behalf of the city council and serving with you on the fire department, I just want to tell you thank you for the lifeless job that you've done. You have truly set an example for all of us, and I can't thank you enough for what you've done. The passion that you have, the cheer, the joy that you always had, I don't know how you've done it the way you have over the years, but I want to say thank you. Smithfield truly is a better place because of the service that you give. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman Scott. Okay, we don't have any public hearings this evening, so we'll move on to citizens' comments. Is there anyone wishing to speak during citizens' comments this evening? Seeing none, we will then move on to the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I so move.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Okay. And we'll move on to business items. Our first item of business is the consideration and request for approval to adopt resolution number 676, supporting the revenue bonds for Johnston Court Apartments rehab project. So this was moved from the consent agenda to the business item number 1.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to rescind the decision made during the town council public hearing on November the 10th, 2020, with respect to the issuance of bonds in conjunction with Johnston Court Apartments.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to rescind those actions from November the 10th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Oh, okay, well, they're welcome to speak if they would like, but we just passed it, so. Okay. You guys have any issues with them?
We've already taken action,
All right.
so it's kind of a mute issue.
Have them follow up with the manager.
Yeah, can we just take that up with the manager? Well, I mean, we've already just voted on it, so. Right. You were the chair, and they've also got somebody from Seattle who's going to speak. Right. Yeah, okay. I apologize, I didn't realize that you were coming here to speak on the matter, but we already have a motion that's been properly seconded and voted on at this time. So, thank you very much. Okay, all right, now we will move on to business item number 2. If I can find it. Not business item 2, sorry, we removed that. So actually, business item number 3, Stormwater Action Committee update, and
No,
what did I miss?
no, business department expansion is now business item number 2.
Sorry, Mayor.
No, that's okay, sorry.
It's business item, police department.
Yeah, yep, sorry.
That's number 2.
That's
Yep.
number 2 now.
Yeah.
My apologies, gentlemen. Councilman
Number
Scott
2.
threw me off there.
Sorry about that.
All right, so business item now, number 2, consideration and request for approval to enter into a contract with APR Restoration and Commercial Development for the Police Department expansion project. All right, who is that?
Mayor, council, thank y'all for allowing us just a few minutes. Mr. Beal has done a lot of work on this, and he's not able to be with us, but Todd and Brian with APR are here tonight to give a brief PowerPoint on it.
Okay, all right. So gentlemen, I will ask for the purposes of recording, is this microphone
On.
on? Chief didn't sound
We don't
like
hear
it was
it.
coming through, and I could barely hear
I
him.
don't think it's working.
So can we check? It sounds like it is, so I'll ask you to speak directly into that mic if you don't mind, if you can, just so we can all hear, but then also we're recording this and televising it, so I'd ask you to please try to speak clearly and louder than you normally do, if you don't mind. Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys for inviting us here tonight. What we're proposing to do for the police department addition, we're proposing to add 3,500 square foot to the building that's there now, the existing building. This will include 250 square foot of office space, new men's locker room and reconfiguration of men's and women's locker rooms, a new armory, a new evidence room, drive-through garage, storage area, additional 25 parking spaces to what is there now, and a parking lot connector in the rear that connects to the back parking lot. That's what we were proposing there. The design phase will be commencing, I put February 2021 on here. If this is approved and we move forward with it, we'll start right away. About two months for the design phase. The construction will be about a 6-month process after the design phase is done. This is an overall aerial photo of the property. We will be taking up pretty much everything in the yellow, within the yellow lines with the new design. This is the overall site view, which shows the new parking spaces are marked in yellow, and it also shows the connector to go into the back parking lot. Also has a drive around that comes around the end of the building there also. This is the overall floor plan. You can see the red line of delineation there. The proposed is to the left, existing building is to the right. What we are also working into within the budget is doing some new finish work, new drop-in ceilings and new lighting in the high bay area of the police station now. This is a front view of the building from the left-hand side. Shows the parking that comes over to the area, the new garage door that will be on the end. That garage door, there's an opposing garage door on the back side where you can drive straight through the building there. This is just another front view from the right side of the building. It's pretty much what you have existing there now. This is a view from the rear of the building. Shows where the garage door comes out. And that's it. Anybody has any questions or anything? I'm Todd Waddell with APR, Restoration Commercial Development. This is Brian Jones. He is with our architect team, Design Line Studios. If you have any questions about the design or anything, Brian can answer any details that we have.
Okay. Any questions, gentlemen?
Mayor, I have a couple questions real quick. Thank y'all for coming and helping us with this project. We needed this a long time. The question I have is the upper part of the building. It's got the skylight view thing. Is that going to be similar, or is it just not going to be a skylight?
Right now, we don't have a design as a skylight. What we're using it is for a shield for all the mechanical units that are on the roof.
Just keeping the roof line.
We're trying to keep the same visual line continuing, but we're not going to have the spaces go up to that to create light wells or anything like that.
And the other question I have, probably is for the chief. Mr. Powell, the e-commerce safe zone that we've established there, will we keep that and just extend it with the way this is laid out?
Yes, it's gonna stay there as it is, and we're gonna extend the camera system and all across the front and the back of the building, so it's gonna stay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? One thing I would like to point out is, Mr. Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have financing line for this yet. Is that the correct statement?
That's correct. We have some ideas of where we're gonna fall on a financing line. This is a great time to take financing because interest rates are so low. But we do not have a particular finance institution to recommend to you tonight.
So, I guess I mean, it's up to you gentlemen, but we could, if I may, maybe enter into a motion in support of this contingent upon, acceptable financing. Is that fair? We don't have that yet?
That is.
That would be, okay.
I had a question.
Sure.
My question is to the chief. Are you happy with this?
Yes.
And are your officers happy with this?
Yes, they are looking forward to it.
And how long will this meet your needs?
If evidence doesn't get any bigger, it will be here for quite a while.
Any estimate of quite a while? I mean,
20 years.
20 years, okay. Of course, we don't know, depends on how fast Smithfield grows, right?
That will not be dependent on it.
Because that's very important. I mean, you know, we want to make sure that if we do something that's going to meet the needs of the people who work there every day, right? I mean, I don't go over there, and I don't want to have to go over there.
But it's gonna actually give us a lot more storage space, have a few more offices, so yes, it's gonna meet our needs.
And my understanding too, when we talked about this, that the parking lot expansion is going to allow for more parking spaces for what was this supposed to additional?
The fire department parking lot that's behind it, it will connect, so there'll be more parking.
So more parking for the whole area over there. Because a lot of times, I know a lot of times we have, when they have a lot of fire stuff, people have to park them down the streets, way down the street because there's nowhere to park, right? This should alleviate some of the on-street parking for those events. Because, I mean, I'm glad the fact that we're having events for our fire department that people in the county come to, you know, because we have good reason for them coming, and so having the space is important too. Okay.
Any further questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the project as written with the consideration of our finance department bringing us recommendations for funding.
Okay. Second. Motion and a second to approve. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, one other thing I'd like to ask the chief, if we could have some discussion, because Mr. Barber brought a very valid point with the parking lot. And I know it's contingent on but could you give us a site plan, a little better, clear site plan that includes the adjoining properties perhaps, so we just look over that later?
Yes.
That way we know kind of where the aprons and stuff,
We'll get it.
because that could be an issue. Like when we have big events and stuff, we may need to, but I'm at your recommendation, of course, because you deal with all that. Thank you. Yeah, but is that where number 2 is that in fact connecting the old? Okay. And so what, the further part of this building here, that drive around, so there's not gonna be any parking there?
You do own this property right here.
Right.
We can have more parking, but that's more money.
Right, that was what I was thinking, rather than put a curb there, push it back and maybe make it a little larger, but I understand it would be different.
Depending on the budget, if you have more budget, do that. You can also leave the curb out, keep it for now, that way you have an easier expanding it. Budget comes along, you set that or whatever you want.
Right.
Those are some things that we can consider when we're doing design, how we treat this edge, and also look at what the total amount of parking should be. We could put a row of parking against the building, push this lane over enough to make the rest of the parking included. Those are budget for you guys.
That's kind of what I was thinking, but I didn't think we were gonna make the decision tonight, so I'd ask Keith, and if you and Mike and maybe the mayor can talk, because we do have parking needs, significant, and that may be an opportunity to make that a little better, but not in their parking lot, so to speak, because that connecting parking area, a lot of, it's a lot of people parked there, and, all over town stuff, and all that we could add would be beneficial without crowding your project, so to speak. But I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Yep.
And maybe that's something, maybe you could get us some ideas or whatever that we could look at, maybe email that to us and we could take that up to your budget.
Yeah, first change order.
Yep, yeah. Let's don't start that yet. Let's get the funding.
There's also room maybe for some parallel parking along this whole edge too. So there's lots of places that we can look at.
Yeah, or better yet, let's go ahead and work that in so we don't get that $20,000 change.
Well, that's fine. I mean, that was really a joke.
I know, I'm joking as well. Okay, anything else, Dave, did you have something?
I was just gonna state that back when, Dr. Barber and I came on, I think we went over to all the departments together and and that's why he's kind of going where he was a while ago, but when we went to the police station, the first thing I saw was, it was very small then, and that was almost 4 years ago. So this is long overdue, and I know that, Chief will be happy to get it, but it's a needed project. But we don't want to hear anything about it after this.
20 years.
For 20 years.
Thank you.
Can we get that right?
It's well needed.
Madam Clerk, please note that in the record, in the minutes. 20 years, yeah.
The only thing I would want to add that I am definitely in favor of functionality over aesthetics. So when you're talking about removing the curb, I don't see the purpose for that. Just letting you know, I'd rather have the ability to expand and do things without having to put something in, take something out, just for looks for a few years, because we know we're going to need to continue to expand. And so to Travis's point, we already have parking issues. So why would we do that? So I think anything that you can do to provide more spaces is something we would be interested in seeing in the design. So if you got existing spaces you could put parking spaces in, I would let us know where we could put parking spaces in, because that, like you said, along the side, I'd mark them, because I think that's important to us. Thank y'all.
Thank you all. So just one clarification, Madam Clerk, if you need, that, I believe the motion was made, whether it was specifically stated, but to award to the low bidder, which is this contractor. Right? I just want to make sure we were clear on that. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yep. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, now we will get to the Stormwater Action Committee update and recommendations. So it should be around page 143 of your agenda package. Stephen, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So a little history here. Flooding history. We've had a lot of flooding history. Number of hurricanes, recent floods this summer. In 2017, the Golden Leaf Foundation grant of $70,000 was approved or accepted for a stormwater study, and that study was done, which identified a number of things the town should be doing for stormwater. In February 2018, we hired Jewel Engineer to do this study, and the plan identified, prioritized, and planned to address flooding and stormwater quality problems throughout the town. In July 2019, the Stormwater Management Action Plan was completed and presented to the Town Council. The final report included findings and recommendations summarized in an executive summary in the report. The appendices included a capital improvement assessment and a charter for a Stormwater Advisory Committee. In November 2019, the Stormwater Advisory Committee was appointed by the Town Council, and we've had those meetings for about a year now. That committee had a mission to review and discuss a range of municipal stormwater services, including regulatory programs, and to make advisory level recommendations to the town management and council regarding the extent and level of the town's future stormwater program and program funding strategy. So the bullet points here are just part of that strategy. Smithfield currently spends about $70,000 annually from the general fund on its stormwater program and services. And this is an image from the study. It was based on surveys of staff and looking at the budget. But it basically said planning roughly spends about $3,500 a year on plan review and inspections. Engineering roughly $10,500. Public Works around $56,000. And that includes public education outreach, which we contract with QEP. I forget the acronym, sorry. Clean Water Education Partnership, there it is. So in this stormwater study, the study was recommending funding sources to pay for future stormwater program. And what's happening all around the country, actually, and North Carolina, is that towns and cities are creating stormwater utilities. It's a utility just like a electric utility or a water utility or sewer utility. In this case, it's a utility for stormwater. And the funding alternatives laid out for that utility is based on an ERU, and it's also based on whatever that ERU, which is a equivalent residential unit. So each residential unit has an impervious footprint. If you average those up in the town, that is your average impervious footprint for a residential property. And then you can charge each residential unit in the town either, whatever fee that you feel will support your program. This report recommended 3 alternatives, either a $1 ERU, a $3 ERU, or a $5 ERU. So a residential unit would pay either $1, $3, or $5 per month each year to pay for that program. Non-residential properties would have their impervious surface calculated, and whatever that average residential impervious is, that would be used. Let's say if you got a $3,000 square foot average residential impervious, your commercial site has 9,000 square foot of impervious, that'd be 3 ERUs, so they would be billed 3 times, 3 times 3 every month for their impervious surface to pay for the utility. Hope that makes sense. So essentially, at some point here, the town council is going to be asked to make a decision on what value each residential property and what the ERU value will be. Are we going to charge a $1, a $3, or a $5 per month for a residential property, and then that would be used to bill non-residential? And it's really based on what type of program we want to have. The more money we have, the more proactive we can be about taking on capital projects. Whereas right now, we're just a reactionary program where we fix problems best we can. We don't have money. We're stealing from the general fund to address problems. And so that is what the Stormwater Committee looked at, and they do have a recommendation for the council. So this is just a slide on what is an ERU. I pretty much described it. The average ERU in North Carolina right now is $4.50, and that's per month for a residential property. Any questions on this slide? As part of this study and what I presented to the Stormwater Committee, they had asked, well, how is this going to impact our non-residential properties? And again, we made some assumptions here, but let's say our average ERU is a 3,000 square foot footprint. We don't know what ours is yet because we've not had the opportunity to calculate that. The average in North Carolina is somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 square feet. It's typically what you see in most towns. And this example is assuming a $3 ERU, so the middle of the range program. And this provides a list of the impact per month and per year, based on, we looked at, some of them are real numbers based on their stormwater reports, and some of them are just based on kind of calculating based on GIS. They're a little less accurate. A more accurate study of footprints will happen. But assuming all that is somewhat accurate, these are the impacts some of these various businesses may have with a $3 ERU, just as for example. Any questions on this? Okay.
I do have a question, perhaps you can answer. I mean, you may not be prepared, and I understand if you're not. With this base of the $3 based on the I'm assuming you're calling that the commercial or non-residential, and the residential, what kind of funds would that generate annually?
Back to this slide. This is based on, you know, a little bit of a crude study by the contractor, Jewel Engineering. But he said with a level 2, a $3 ERU, with a number of assumptions, he made a good number of assumptions which are in the report. And if they prove accurate, we'd be generating about $630,000 a year for our stormwater program. Whereas a $5 ERU would generate over $1 million. And again, we're currently at about 70,000. So that's a pretty good improvement in our program.
Okay, thank you. I
Okay.
understand now.
Would this apply to all properties in town limits, whether it be Johnston County? I see JCC and Community, got the Pottery, other nonprofits on here.
Yes.
So it's every property regardless of their status.
Yes. Residential would have a flat fee based on that $3 or $5, whatever we decide. But non-residential would be based on their impervious footprint and the average ERU footprint. Okay? So our intent with stormwater fee collection, the town's, the options for collecting fees is typically on monthly utility bills or putting it on property taxes. We recently found out the statutes require a special act to put it on property taxes. That is the town's interest. It makes it much easier for collection. We have a lot of people that you know aren't our water or electricity users in town and on the west side. It just makes it easier for collection if it's on property tax. It's more seamless, but it will require a local act, and that is something that the manager is going to be working on with your endorsement.
Question about that though, then if you put it on property tax, then only those people who actually own the property would be paying for that, correct?
That's correct.
But also the question I have, I mean, like just a statement, you know, it's kind of like we do yard waste. We pick up our trash collection, we have yard waste, and we pay a fee every month. It's a flat fee, we pay it every month. And I don't hear many people complaining about it because the truth is we get value for our money. I mean, there's no question. We put it out there and they pick it up, no matter what it is, right? I mean, that's just, people are amazed. And so I don't hear anybody complaining about that. So it just to let you know that I'm telling you that I think that's me yelling. I think that you're going to have more buy-in from the residents in small amounts versus larger amounts. And when you add it to tax, fed to your county taxes or city taxes, you only pay that one time a year, which means it accumulates. And now instead of an extra $3 a month, which winds up being something, now it's you're going to $50, $60 added to your tax bill for the year. And to some people, that's a big difference in their taxes. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying I would encourage you when you're looking at doing something for residents, I think it's preferable, what I know of people is preferable that they take smaller chunks than larger chunks.
I believe the reason, and this can be discussed further with the manager and all, but I believe it has to do with collection. You don't pay your utility bill, it's a little harder to cut you off from stormwater as opposed to water and sewer and electrical.
But we have a pretty high collection rate. We don't really have a large problem. Isn't that correct?
The biggest issue, the collection is an issue. Obviously, we have a lot higher percentage of collection for property taxes than for utility bills. But there become some problems with rental properties. Any rental property that you have, let's say, well, let's look at the Pottery as a big example. If you're not going to have the property owner pay for this fee and you know get it from their employees or their renters, as they go along, then what we have to do is somehow divide up that total amount that was on there among every single business there. And that becomes difficult because an ERU is based on the entire place, not on one section of a store where they're all connected. Same thing with apartment complexes. If they all have separate water meters, it becomes very difficult to know how much to charge every single apartment based on, because they're all different sizes, and it gets very difficult to defend in court if we get challenged.
I guess additionally, some renters have their tenants pay their utility bills.
Well, that's exactly the problem.
Yeah.
So you're getting money from a renter who doesn't even, isn't really contributing to the impervious area. The owner is. You're not reaching the owner that way. You're just reaching the renter. So those are the biggest issues when you do research on this, of cities that have already done it. When you look at using utility bills, it becomes problematic, and difficult to collect and difficult to identify how much to charge some of these renters.
How would this work if it's on property tax bills with churches, again, like the county courthouse? They don't pay a property tax. How would they pay their fee?
They'd still be charged one.
It just wouldn't be on a property tax bill necessarily.
It would be on a bill similar to that, just like if, they're a nonprofit, but if you don't own a house, so you don't have property taxes, but you have a business, you still have property taxes for all that equipment. It'd be similar to that, handled similarly.
So they'd have a different property tax listing form.
Right.
So have we benchmarked with some of these other towns that you have listed here? Don, Zebulon, Holly Springs, Knightdale, Wilson, so forth, as to how they administer it?
There's only a list of about six or seven municipalities in North Carolina that are allowed to put it on property tax.
So how are the others doing it?
By utility bills.
I'd just be interested to see if there are any issues there, right? If there are only 6 in North Carolina, and I will say, based on my past experience over the last few years with local bills as it relates to raising taxes, doesn't matter if we want it or not, doesn't matter if it's a fee or not, the climate in the General Assembly has been no. And they will not add it or give us that local bill. So it's just something to think about. And then also we got to think about when we want to implement this and when we have to get local bills in, right? But obviously, if that's the route we wanted to go, we could certainly begin working on that. But the appetite for local bills that increase property taxes, even though you can argue this is not increasing property taxes, to your point, it very well could be looked upon that way. So I think we need to look into that a little further, in my opinion, and kind of let's see what we come up with. That's just my thought. Yes, sir.
I have a few comments about this specifically. Excuse me. First of all, I'd like to say, I tell the staff thank you for doing your due diligence and the committee. A lot of work here. And I do understand the need for management of our stormwaters. We're all well aware of flooding and stuff. But the concern that I have, I would like to put before council is we're in the midst of a pandemic and quite a bit of an economic negative impact on a lot of our businesses and our citizens. And I'm concerned that we're potentially going to put in a fee that's going to increase the collections 10 times what we're actually spending right now. So I would ask the council to consider putting this, if we're going to do it, put it in as a phase versus just all one time. I think about our good friend, I hate to call him out, but I'm sure you won't mind, Mr. John Shawcross. He has been mandated to be shut down many months these past few, and that's made it hard for him to meet ends meet, and many other businesses as well. And I think about that. I think about the parking area that he has and all the businesses. And I feel that we need to take that into consideration moving forward with this. what I was referring to is, we're currently spending about 70,000. The collection at the $3 would bring us to 630,000. I know we need the money, but we need a plan. What's that money gonna be spent for, you know, capital improvement, all these things? And we may have some of that, but I just think that we need to be very careful about increasing fees during this time, and be very due diligent in making sure it's the proper thing to do. That's all I have, Mayor.
Yep, and fair point, Councilman Scott, and I too echo what you say, and on the surface, I am in favor of the stormwater fee. And no action is requested tonight.
Okay.
So no action is going to be, is requested by staff tonight, so there's no need to go into that tonight, but your point is well taken, Councilman Scott, and I too have been contacted by some of the businesses, and I'm sympathetic to that, right? And so, as we begin to look into this, you're dead on, right? I mean, their businesses have gone, if it hasn't been reduced by 50, you know, probably 75, 80%, some down to almost zero, right? So the timing of this, I think, we need to certainly look at, but in my opinion, I think it's something that we definitely need to do. It's my thought process, but just let's think about the timing of when we want to implement. It looks like it's going to be a while anyway, because we've got some stuff that we've got to figure out.
All right, so I just wanted to share with you what the Stormwater Committee's recommendation was. They chose the middle-of-the-road recommendation for a $3 ERU with to create roughly a $630,000 a year revenue stream. And just to reiterate, so as that fee increases, we'll be looking at a more robust program to match that fee amount, which there are things that we're going to be required to do by DEQ, and one of it is mapping our pipe outfalls. That's a big undertaking and quite expensive, and that's something that, as we become an MS4 community, we're going to have to do. So we're really getting ready to do some things that we're going to have to do once the regulations change. We still have time. I don't know when that's going to happen. Probably a couple years out yet, but I do believe it's coming. And MS4 is just a different permit we'd be operating under. And once you reach your population threshold, typically towns and cities are put into a different permit based on that population size, and we're at that threshold already, growing. So I do anticipate it to happen. So we'll have greater requirements under our permit that are more costly, more education, mapping, and some other requirements that we have to address. So this is an attempt to get ahead of that and also to really take care of some of the problems that we've been living with for a very long time. So I don't know if I put a slide on this. So the next steps. If the council agrees with the general recommendations to create a stormwater utility, the next step would be to hire a consultant to map single-family and non-residential impervious surfaces to determine the actual amount of impervious ERU. What is the basis for our billing? Is it 3,000? Is it 2,500 square feet? What is our average? And then calculate actually what is the impervious footprint of all of our businesses or non-residential properties, so we can actually figure out if that $3 ERU actually comes up with a $630,000 revenue. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. We won't know until that impervious study is done, and then the council will have that information to make a more educated recommendation when the time comes. But right now, based on the information we have, the SWAC believes the $3 is the fairest and best route to go. And so also at that time, whatever that time is, there will be the need to adopt an ordinance for stormwater utility, which we do have a draft ready to go. I don't know if we put that in your packet or not, but look forward to that coming when we all decide it's time to move forward. So right now we do have an RFQ, request for qualifications for this study to determine the impervious surfaces. We're going to get a number of companies providing their qualifications. At that point, we will be able to select the best firm and with the contract amount, and at that point, we bring that contract back to the town council and see if that is something you want to move forward with. So those are the next steps. And do you have any questions?
Mayor, I have one other question, and I apologize for not asking a while ago. This is probably for Mr. Seiler and his staff. Greg, would it be appropriate for us to go ahead and establish an enterprise fund for budgeting and let the general fund contribute the $70,000 we're already paying for that so we can start tracking this a little better? Or would that be too complicated? Yeah, well, that's fine. I know y'all work as a team when these things come up.
I don't think it's an enterprise fund if we're funding it through general fund tax dollars.
Right, I understand, but it would be. Am I correct?
It would be eventually, once you start having a revenue stream, but I don't think you can put the cart before the horse and put general fund dollars into it.
So could you, my concern is so that just doesn't get mashed together in other stuff, is it would be itemized of what we're doing. So could we do it as a department?
We could do it as a department.
And then later transfer it to enterprise?
Yes.
Because I think that's important, so we're transparent in our funding, in our spending. Because, you know, like I said earlier, I understand the need. I really do. I understand, you know, the flooding, the pipes need, you know, serviced and checked and mapped. But I just think that we need to be able to be transparent in our funding. And if it's had its own item with, you know, additional things and a capital improvement plan, what's our goals? To be specific, we haven't discussed this, but we've spent money for repairing the greenway. Would that money be used? Would this money be used for that? I don't know that that's appropriate. That's one of my concerns.
For the riverbank
Yeah.
repairs? Probably not. It's not really, that's not really a.
That's exactly my point. So we could be transparent in what it's for. That's fine. Y'all, we can talk later. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I would like to add is that, you know, we mentioned earlier our waste fee or yard waste fee that is charged, and I get no complaints on it. And the reason why we don't get complaints is because everybody sees value in it. If people see value in it, they don't have complaints. It's things that they don't see value in. So the concern I have with this is that there's certain parts of town that have more problems with stormwater than others. I mean, there's large parts of our town that have no problem with stormwater. Now, they could be a result, they could be causing the problem to everybody else. I'm not saying that. But you understand, I mean, but there are things, that, example, in West Smithfield, we don't have a lot of problems over in our area, really, with a lot of stormwater problems. I mean, it flows down the river. Now, we do have yards that are flooded. Every time it rains, our yards are flooded. That's because no one comes by and cleans out our ditches like they're supposed to do. You understand? I mean, that's part of the town's responsibility, clean those ditches out because they own the responsibility to do it. But my point is, that's why I'm saying whenever you do something, you're going to have to put a plan in place that shows how we're utilizing, if it's nothing, just cleaning the ditches out. You know, you're not spending a lot of time building these things, but you're still spending maintenance to do some things. You know what I'm talking about, Roger? I mean, if that's the problem, water can't flow down our street because the ditches are full now, and they just don't flow anymore. So I'm saying is, whenever we implement a stormwater plan, we need to make sure that we give everybody something. You know what I mean? That this is where we've identified this area here, we need to work on these things. Now, we might not be doing the first, they might not be the highest on our priority list, you understand? But we've identified every area that has a need so that when we do the yard waste idea, right, everybody's getting something for it. They're seeing values in their money, not just their neighbors. I mean, it'd be nice to think that you care about your neighbors, you know what I mean? But not everybody sees it that way. So I'm just saying, just a thought, whenever you guys are developing a plan, make sure you look at the entire town to develop the plan and not just the hardest hit areas that clearly we need to spend money on, which we've committed money to, right? I mean, we've already committed money to doing some things already. So, you know, I think that, but you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Because there are things, so.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I just want to point out that in the back of the stormwater report, you still have that, the charter for the SWAC is there. And it does recommend that there continue to be a stormwater committee to advise the stormwater program into the future once we establish the program. So we'll have that advisory oversight. Hopefully there'll be some council representation, planning board, citizens at large, businesses, you know, a good mix of the community to help direct that. Also, the recommendations talk about hiring a stormwater manager. That would be someone that would be day-to-day really looking comprehensively at the program, where right now it's split between me, the town engineer, public works, and it's not cohesive and directed. And part of that too is revisiting the capital improvement plan every year. You can look at equity, you can look at lots of different things as you decide what to fund. But, you know, we're not there yet, but having a stormwater utility will get us there. And so this was just an update to let you know what we're working on and what to look forward to in the coming future.
Any further questions, thoughts? So, Stephen, I did have one question, just a question about the meeting of the SWAT committee on November the 20th. Of the members present, were they all, I mean, was it sort of a unanimous on this approach, if you will, and the $3 and the actual approach as to how we would do it?
It really was unanimous. I mean,
Okay.
we had not always great attendance. As we got to the end with the recommendation, attendance got a little better. The meeting prior to this, there were a lot of issues raised, and we addressed those. And at the final meeting, it was a unanimous decision of those present.
Okay.
You know, it was just answering their questions, and they all got it. And so that is the nature of this recommendation.
Okay. Good work so far.
Thank you.
Any other questions so far? Anything else for Mike or the manager? The manager or Steve? Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, now we'll move on to council members' comments. Any comments from the council? Further comments?
Mayor, I have a few comments I would like to make. You know, this is, serving on the council's been quite a blessing for me, learning about the community, the people that are my neighbors, others that live in the community and work here. I just want to reflect on, this is Black Heritage, Black History Month coming up, we're on right now, and a lot of our neighbors and friends that affects. I just want to make sure we remember that and, you know, give respect to the, as we do, for the situations that those that come before us have laid the groundwork for where we are in Smithfield. And one other thing I want to do is I wanted to thank the staff again for their hard efforts. I was out leaving my house. It was pouring down rain. It's been a wet winter, and the staff had come by, you know, on their route picking up the trash, and I stopped and talked with them. And it's just amazing the work that they do, and the weather didn't even bother them. And I just want to make sure that we tell them thank you again for what they do. That's all I have.
Good point, sir. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Manager, I'll turn it over to you, sir, for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of things. We're preparing to put up signage on North 2nd Street where the water plant is. We'll be closing that road effective March 8th as it stands right now. We'll be putting up signs probably this week alerting the public that we'll be closing that on March 8th to give everybody fair notice ahead of time so that they can adjust their traffic patterns accordingly. We have a meeting, a public informational meeting scheduled on February 11th at 6:30 to 8:30 at the Schrack to provide information on the Spring Branch project between South 4th Street and Highway 301. The meeting will also be held via video conferencing on Facebook Live. It'll be a drop-in meeting. People can drop in, ask questions, or they can use Facebook Live and get information that way. So that's February 11th at 6:30 to 8:30. Anyone on the council is obviously willing or welcome to attend. However, we can't have more than what would be less than a quorum there. Lastly, like the council's input, we had discussed prior to tonight about having a budget meeting for the community to provide feedback to all of us about the upcoming budget and budget priorities. We'd like to schedule that meeting for Thursday, February 25th from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Schrack. People could also email in their questions or their comments, as well as we'll have a conference line, call line set up for people to call. It'll be a duly noticed meeting, so quorum won't be an issue, won't be any action items, obviously, but it'll be a time for everyone to engage with the public, anyone who wanted to, prior to getting into budget workshops, to see where the priorities might lie in the minds of our citizens. So I'd like to know if that date is appropriate, if that's something I could get from y'all.
Anything else, sir?
No.
Say February 25th, you said?
It's a Thursday.
Thursday, tell me that time again?
6:30 to 8:30 was what we were
8:30.
looking at.
You guys have any issues with that date? Is that something you would like to do?
Mayor, I think it's important we get feedback from the community whenever we can. I think the COVID may cause us some problems, but if we can have the call available, we have to have some, guidelines or something to help people understand what we're looking for.
All right, would you suggestion that we recess this meeting to that date, or do you want to advertise it?
No, we will make notice prior to the meeting.
So we can just adjourn this meeting?
correct.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, all right. So it appears that the 25th would work at 6:30. So if you want to proceed with that? Thank you. That would be good. Okay. Is that it, sir?
That is all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Certainly do appreciate it. All right, so that is it for the official agenda, gentlemen. That's in the public portion. We do need to go into closed session. So at this time, I would entertain a motion that we go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, Section A4. Have a motion.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All in favor?
Aye.